Bridges, with your host, Doni Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Hey, good Sunday morning and welcome to Bridges. I'm so glad that you're with us today. This conversation is critical to your safety, the safety of your children, the safety of your neighbors. We're talking about your health. We're talking about HIV and AIDS. It's a conversation that we're not having quite enough these days as far as I'm concerned, and we're determined here in Lucas County not to let the importance of this issue go away. We're talking to 3 area experts. You will see them again and again on this show over the coming year. That's the importance that I assign to this particular topic. I'd like to introduce them to you now. We have Michelle Kuchar, who is a case manager at UTMC. It is so nice. Social worker as well.
Correct.
Thank you for being with us this morning. I really appreciate it. Jerry Kerr, who was actually the HIV prevention coordinator at the Toledo-Lucas County Board of Health. You were the guru in this part of Ohio when it comes to this particular issue.
We try. I try.
You do great work. Thank you so much. And we have Michelle Smith Wojnowski. I'm sorry, I knew I would mess that up. She's from the Neighborhood Health Association, also an expert in the area of women as it relates to the issue of HIV/AIDS. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
How are we doing here? How are we doing in this county? You just did a count.
Not bad.
Not bad?
Not bad. We're a lot like most other cities in the United States, our size. But for some populations, that's not saying much. Rates are still pretty high, especially for African Americans. About 43% of all new infections each year are in that population, and our county is only 19% black overall, so definitely.
Pretty scary stuff.
Yes.
Percentage of women in that? About
14%. 14% of our new infections each year are African American women, and they make up about 12% of Lucas County population. So again, when you look at whites compared to African Americans, a huge difference there.
You guys just did a count, didn't you? Your quarterly count. Let's take a look at those numbers. We have them here, if we can get that screen up. There you go. You just found, what period of time was this, Jerry, that this count was referenced to?
That was really the first 2.5 months of this year. So
in the first 2.5 months of this year, we had 14 new positives?
Yeah, it looks like this year we may be right around again, 50, 55 diagnosed positives. Probably the rule of thumb is that then there's a third more of folks that don't get diagnosed. So in very rough terms, about 70 new infections each year, year after year, in very round terms. So that adds up, certainly does.
And even in those statistics, even though they're a bit they're not extrapolated, and you've given us extrapolated numbers, we still see that we have the highest incidence of diagnoses, of positive diagnoses in African Americans, 8 males, 2 females. Yeah. In Caucasians, there were only 2. They were both males. Asians, 1. Latinos, there was 1, and there was 1 female as well. What do you think? How are we combating this, ladies? Michelle?
We are trying to increase our education and outreach from our standpoint.
And go ahead.
We will go and educate anywhere and everywhere that we are able to, and we provide testing in approximately 15 different areas right now. We have satellite sites. We have learned that we need to take the testing to the people instead of waiting for them to come and be tested in our area.
Do you think it still has the same passion, that this issue still has the same community passion
No.
Why is that? I don't know, because this is what, I mean, this is not sex in 1970s anymore. This sex will affect your life in the most devastating of ways for a very, very long time to come. I mean, clearly, people are not dying at the rate that they used to, but it's still an intrusive and very difficult disease. Why aren't we as excited or as concerned about it as we used to be?
Part of the thought
at a grassroots level, at a neighborhood level.
I think there are other issues that have taken precedence. It's been around for so long, I believe, that they now think we need to focus on other issues. HIV still carries the stigma as it did, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We're very conservative, which was kind of, surprising to me because I don't I'm not conservative at all.
Right.
And when you ask a conservative town to talk about sex and address sex and do it in the forefront of everything they do, they don't want to do it.
They don't want to do it.
Let's pretend that it doesn't exist and it'll go away.
But the impact of it, the impact of not paying attention to it, Michelle.
It's phenomenal. Being out in the field when you're talking to people and you're giving them that awareness of what's really going on in the community, the response is very overwhelming. Being able to talk to people and tell them, look, this is what's going on in your neighborhood. This is what's affecting not just you, it's your families, it's your neighbors. They do listen and they do want to make those changes, but getting that information out there is very crucial.
And I think you're right. I think it's still a very stigmatizing illness, and so you're not so willing to walk into a clinic, although there are lots of places all over town that will test you for free, and some of those are anonymous testings. We still are afraid, I think, to find out, to know.
I think that's part of it, and I think we've also done a really, really good job at telling people that being HIV positive is not the end of the world. There's good medications. You can look fine, just like Magic Johnson. We may have gone overboard on that.
I think so too, a little bit.
And that's a bit of a problem.
It's, yeah, it is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, you hear a lot of people telling folks that it's not that scary anymore, and they don't go into detail about how it can be very debilitating, shorten a person's life greatly.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right about that. I wish there was a way that we could make people understand that this is an illness that can affect everybody. It's not about really what you look like. It's not about your sexuality. It's not a gay disease, although there is a fair amount of experience now in bisexual, transgender.
Sure. About 70% of, and this is nationwide, not just here, of course, about 70 to 75 of our infections are in men, and a large percentage of that percentage are gay, bisexual, transgender men. It can be quite high, those statistics, and a lot of men who get infected by another man, they try and say, well, I was infected by a woman. A lot of times that's not true, but it is indeed something we all have to be aware of, and I think we've done a good job at really saying this is about all of us, not just gay men, certainly not. We're all at risk, and at the same time we do want to focus on that very important group, what the CDC calls men who have sex with men group.
Yes, that's right. You know, and again, one of the most interesting things to me is that although this started out as a disease, you know, 30 years ago focusing on the gay community, the fact of the matter is that in women, the transmission is in heterosexual sex, happens in heterosexual sex, doesn't happen with needles, doesn't happen with homosexuality, especially with women. It's a really hard disease for a woman to transmit to another woman. So it's sex with men. It's sex with men. We are just not doing a very good job protecting ourselves as women. So, what are some of the rules we should be talking to folks about?
Empowerment.
Absolutely.
Empowerment
I'm so
is
glad
very
you said
key.
that. I'm so glad you said that.
Giving women the opportunity to empower themselves, talking to them about topics that are going to touch them specifically, listening to what their concerns are and being able to focus on those topics is very crucial. You can give a person information, but if it doesn't pertain to them, it's going in one ear and out of the other. And so having different focus groups that are talking to women about issues that they want to listen to, that they're interested in, is very key. Once you start that dialogue with women, then they're talking to other women. Then you give them the power to talk to their families, to talk to the men in their families, the boys in their families, their uncles, their fathers, and it just starts to go all, down the line. And I've had a lot of different women who I've spoken to who told me just that. You gave me information that enabled me to then go and talk to my family, to talk to my son, to talk to my daughter, so that this information could be spread. So it has to start with empowerment. If you feel the power, then you will go out and you will exercise that power.
Right, and I think that people have to understand the impact that this disease will have on your life and that you have some control over that. Do you agree?
Yes.
You agree?
Absolutely.
And absolutely it comes from empowerment, Michelle. I totally agree with that. But we don't tend to think it's going to happen to us, do we?
No. It especially in the younger generation, part of it's developmentally, but when I sit with children or adolescents, you know, under 20, they are very much, it won't happen to me. All the people I sleep with are clean. That is, you know, the phrase I hear over and over and over. I don't sleep with dirty people, and I
know. And what is a dirty person? What is that?
That's what I ask them.
What
it's
is
pretty
that?
Subjective.
I know.
You know?
So he's a nice guy. She's a nice girl.
Right. Looks good. Drives
Right.
a nice car.
They always smell really good.
Sure.
You know,
Yes,
they always take
yes.
a shower. They're nice people.
And lo and behold, you know, many times in my support groups, I hear women who have been infected say, yeah, that man, he looked very good, had a great job, was a smooth talker, and unfortunately, you know, he was also HIV positive.
That's right. They don't wear signs. Nobody wears a sign on their head, folks.
No,
I mean, they just don't. You got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself. Are you hearing the same kind of stuff when you're out and about?
You know, you do, and we have, as you mentioned, about 25 different test sites, and my goodness, 30 or 40 well-trained counselors who do testing in our county. And you hear that story a lot, that folks come in, and I think it's a lot of rationalizing on the part of the person about to be tested, but they want to believe that they're being careful, and so they say things like, well, you know, I know this person, they're a good person, they don't have sexually transmitted diseases. But in fact, you can't tell by looking, and in fact, people do have sex, oftentimes without a condom. So
you know what's always amazing to me is that people are afraid to ask someone to use a condom, or they're afraid to ask about testing or have that conversation. But at the same time, you're putting yourself in the most intimate situation possible, but you're afraid to say, we need to use a condom.
And we have with us the two experts, guys, both of our Michelles this morning. That's really the bottom line of programs that they do, is approaching that topic. How do you make it happen?
Well, you know, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought, because I really want to talk about that in some detail. So we're going to go away, but don't forget, okay? We're going to go away. We will be right back. Please hang tight.